like that fits it, but the venue and the audience and what they're there for, I wouldn't say that exactly fit.
But I'm always amused by Christians. There is two halves of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New.
Yeah.
And if you ever spent any time in the Old Testament, it's a wild place.
Oh, yeah.
And the Bible was written, over 3 centuries by hundreds of men.
Right.
And it's actually, for its time, a pretty progressive document when it comes to women.
Yeah.
But the idea that a woman is subservient to God, well, I'm sorry, but if you're a Christian, you have to make your peace with that, don't you? I mean, the Bible is clear as day on this. Man follows God, woman follows man. It's all over the place. How can you be a Christian or claim to be someone who follows the Bible and then get so upset when somebody points to places of the Bible that don't match up with modern thinking? I'm always amazed when a Christian says, gosh darn it, the Bible just isn't, it's just not, what it needs to be today. Well, that's not what the Bible is. The Bible isn't a book of change. It's a book of everything needs to stay exactly this way to be in accordance with God. And I'm always amazed when people go to something that's religious, hear basic religious teachings, and just freak out about it. If you have a problem with Harrison Butkner, you don't have a problem with him. You have a problem with Christianity is what you have a problem with.
Well, I would say there's different interpretations of Christianity, too. That's the issue with the Bible, right? Everybody kind of interprets it various different ways that they want to. And you can do so. And I think what rubbed people the wrong way was the anecdote he gave where his wife truly didn't find her vocation, until she met him. Yeah. So it was kind of like the implication was like her life didn't have meaning until she met him. So, again, I think it's a little bit different than just he could have extolled the virtues of motherhood and homemaking without going to the lengths I think he did that would have sounded controversial.
But everything he said was biblically sound. If you live your life from a biblical perspective, you're an Orthodox Christian. That's the word of God, right? If you have a problem with what Harrison Butkner said, your problem's in the Bible. Your problem's not with him.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot that contradicts that too.
Well, we're just going to start. We've already recorded so much. This 2 minute middle, we're talking about Harrison Butkner. This wasn't a public institution. This was a Catholic college. People who paid extra money to go to a school, I'm assuming, that had Catholic roots. Why would you go if you didn't? There's all kinds of options that you can go to. So I don't know. I struggle with that again, the Bible is not a progressive document. That's not what it's there for. It's not there to be interpreted through a modern lens. It is there to say, this is how God wants you to live, and these are the roles God wants you to play. Period. There is no interpretation of that.
You can find a lot of female figures in the Bible, though, that were leaders of some type, not necessarily had children and were married. The Bible is very prescriptive on motherhood and fatherhood and rearing children. So that's all a part of it. But I think going into the detail that, one not only matters more than the other, but you haven't found your vocation if you're a woman until you have truly been a mother or had children. That doesn't... Again, how does that address, this is getting really into the weeds, how does that address women who can't have children biologically or where that's not an option? So I think the thing is, too, to remember, too, is Catholic colleges attract a lot of students who are not Catholic, just like other denominational colleges do, and they recruit students, especially for their athletic programs that are not necessarily Catholic. Something to keep in mind. And even in the Catholic faith, there's a wide range of beliefs when you get to specific issues. So core Catholic identity in terms of belief in God and service to others and the golden rule. like there's a lot that you could stick to and hang on there without like wading into areas that are rife with division.
I guess, yeah, I've been on record. I'm an atheist. I'm a non-believer. I have no dog in this fight, but I do not understand Christianity. Well, let me back up. I was confirmed Catholic. My mom was the secretary of our Catholic church. Went to church every day before school, every Sunday. My dad converted to Catholicism and was baptized into the Catholic Church. So my Catholic bona fides they're there. I know what being Catholic means. Religion and the Bible is not an a la carte menu. You don't take it piece part at a time. You take it all, or you don't get the benefit of it, is what I was always taught. And I think that's where in the modern church and in modern religion, it's being presented as, well, it's a smorgasbord. If you don't like broccoli, you don't have to eat it. If you don't like that part of it, don't read it. Hey, stay out of the Old Testament altogether, because there's some crazy shit in there. That's really not what the Bible is. And I guess the reason why I'm a little bit more up on this topic, I've been listening to a ton of right-wing religious podcasts, and they are weaving religion and politics together in a way that comes across with Harrison Butkner's speech. I guess my point is, get ready for more of this, and get ready for more of this in mainstream politics.
Yeah, I would just add there is no universal interpretation, though, of like what the Bible means or its practical application in people's lives. That's why there are hundreds of different, that's why there's hundreds of different denominations. That's why there's teachings that vary all the way from giving alms to prosperity gospel, which are very different lines of thought, but each claim to borrow from the Bible. So I just say that you're not supposed to pick and choose, but from the beginning of time, even in the Catholic Church, there's been disagreement about some of these issues, and even the Catholic Church has changed its teachings on some of these issues over time, in terms of what they allow or what they don't allow. So it's not, I think, as clear cut as just saying it is or isn't. If that was the case, we wouldn't have hundreds of different Christian denominations and different sects that interpret.
You tell me if this is wrong.
Belief system.
Both of us grew up with hippie Jesus, right? Jesus was a loving figure. He was he was somebody who was always there to love and to see the best in people, and he was not a negative person. That was always how I was taught with Jesus. Jesus was synonymous with God's love.
Right.
That is not the Bible's depiction of Jesus at all. Jesus was incredibly judgmental. People told people all the time, stop sinning. When the lady, the stoning thing story in the Bible, let he who has never sinned cast the first stone. That is not the meaning of that story. The meaning of the story is he turns around to that lady and says, stop sinning. Go in peace, but stop sinning.
But he also shows
her. He didn't tell her she was okay. He told her, stop doing what you're doing.
Well, yeah, he said go and repent, but he was also acting counter to the religious leaders at the time, the Jewish religious leaders, who had these laws and beliefs that, if you violated this, you would be stoned. And so there's an element also of compassion and also forgiveness and also, turning your life around. So that was, I think, kind of proven out time and time again in some of the biblical stories. So I think there is something we said that there's examples of that being countercultural. And you have figures like Mary Magdalene and others who come to him who are not necessarily welcomed, in their communities.
She was a prostitute in the Bible, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, she was depicted as a prostitute, but modern thinking is that was more to just...
Gotcha, just a term that they used.
That she really wasn't. But she was a marginal figure, and so that is one of the common threads that runs through the New Testament is that Jesus, addresses figures that are on the margins, who are cast out by society, gives them, a chance to redeem themselves, make themselves anew, and go out and do so. And so there's elements of that. Because there's also a line of thinking that Jesus was very countercultural in many ways. He was going up against the precepts of the time, religious and political. with the Roman Empire as well as the Jewish leaders, and casting aside, the laws at the time in terms of what you could or couldn't do on like the Sabbath.
Yeah.
He got in trouble for allegedly performing miracles on the Sabbath because that was a no-no. You weren't supposed to do that.
Let's end our talk of modern Christianity mercifully with...
Yeah, we're wading way in the depths of religion at the moment.
What do you think of those He Gets Us commercials?
I don't have. I was always curious about them just because I didn't know the organization behind them, and they make you think. I don't really have strong feelings. Either way.
My first impression of those commercials is Jesus never washed anybody's feet. He washed the feet of his disciples as a show of his relationship with him and his love for them. Jesus never washed anybody else's feet. Jesus didn't show up in a town and said, "Bring all your sinners out. I'm going to wash their feet."
But
that's not what he did.
Didn't he tell them to go and do that out in the world as well?
Potentially. All I'm saying is the idea of Jesus as a feet washer, that's not biblically sound. And those commercials are directly geared at the Harrison Butkner crowd to try to let's all get back to hippie loving Jesus.
Yeah. It's, again, Christianity, I think like any religion has a wide range of viewpoints and people are going to latch on, and there's going to be people that are going to subscribe to the more conservative Orthodox version and others who don't. I just go back to the timing and the venue. That is not a typical commencement speech.
No,
it's not typical to not only wade into that, but also the LGBTQ issue, comment on the president, comment on COVID policy, to introduce politics. Commencement is because you have a wide range of viewpoints among families and students that are there. It's supposed to be very encouraging and rah-rah and supportive and go out into the world and find your passion. And so I think that speech stood out. I was surprised it got the universal and international attention it did. I did expect it to stay. It got several days of media coverage. And so I was trying to dissect why, because he also gave a speech at his alma mater in Georgia last year, a commencement speech. Mm-hmm. They got picked up and got a little bit of attention, not as much so because he didn't get as heavily controversial. But in that speech, he basically said he encouraged people to get married and have kids.
Sure. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, with nothing wrong with that. He took it, I think, several steps further with just the litany of topics he waded into with this one, which was different.
I don't have a problem with Buckner's speech, but the controversial part is God told you this. This doesn't come from me. This comes from God. And that, to your point, that's not a commencement speech that I'd want to hear.
Yeah, and I think it's... You need to be cognizant of your audience and of the moment and what people are there for. This wasn't a speech to the theology department.
No.
It was, or to the College of Religion. It wasn't a speech to a church congregation. It wasn't a speech to religion students. Mm-mm. So none of those venues. Students getting their confirmation or first communion. So again, it is a Catholic college, but very different. And as I said prior, I think that stands out unique among commencement addresses, even among Catholic colleges.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, before I made you talk about religion for 13 minutes, you actually have some notes you brought with you today.
I did. I just have a couple of notes because there's so much has occurred in the last couple of weeks.
We decided this week we're just going to fire off a bunch of small topics at random.
Gosh, and I don't even know where to start. I have something on Trump, but then there's Pandora's box. It's like, how much do you open when it comes to Trump?
I'll throw it at you. Nikki Haley came out today and said, "Hell yeah, I'm voting for Trump." What?
Yeah, the level of disappointment I have, cannot be overstated because she has waited already so long to do this, and so why would you choose now to indicate that? And just like Bill Barr, there's an element of cognitive dissonance because it goes up against a slew of public statements that she has made in the last several months where she said Trump is unfit for office. It would be dangerous for the country if he's elected, that the Republican Party needs to be purged of every last vestige of Trumpism. So to make those kind of statements and be like, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm voting for Trump. Like, really? Like, and she doesn't have to go. I give a lot of credit to the vice president. Gosh. I have a cold, by the way, so if I sound nasally.
I think everybody has a cold. I've got a cold. Yeah, everybody's sick.
I give credit to the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, who actually came out directly and said he was going to support and vote for Biden. She doesn't have to do that. She could just say, I'm not going to vote for Trump and leave it at that. So by saying she's going to vote for Trump, when she intentionally stayed in the race long after it was clear that she didn't have the votes, to send a message and to say, hey, there is a place here for people who do not support the MAGA movement and do not fall into this coalition. I mean, it basically throws all that away. And I get that she's done this for power, for relevance, viability, probably like her long-term political future. But at the same time, there's also a loss of credibility. And, time... things change fast, and who knows what iteration the party will be around post-November, depending on the outcome. But, I mean, we could be in a future where, Haley has banked on this being her saving grace for a long-term political future, and it doesn't work out for her in the future. So, it's a risk.
This is just more confirmation. Haley's just a vessel who needs power poured into her. And
she's long been ambitious, and I think this proves that this, is her just putting her finger to the wind like she typically does.
I predicted weeks ago that she would be the VP pick. I think this is step one of a 3-step process that she becomes Trump's vice president candidate. And my logic behind that when I said it was, this scratches both of their biggest itches. Haley's is power, Trump is humiliation. He will offer her the VP slot, and she will take it. Do you doubt that if Trump comes out tomorrow and says, Nikki Haley, I want you to be my VP, do you have any doubt she would take it?
I want to say that there's a possibility she wouldn't, but I think you're right, which is concerning that she would take it. And I think that would be extremely difficult to beat. And the only reason that I think it's still not super likely that is a scenario that's getting more and more likely, but not super likely, is that Trump is so fickle. And I think it'll be interesting to see the dances that he makes these candidates, the routines they have to go through as part of this apprentice.
Oh, he's going to make Haley dance.
Yeah. And the question will be how much. I think it would be hilarious if he picked the governor of North Dakota, just based off the interviews I've seen that guy do.
What can that guy do to embarrass himself more, to signal to Trump, I'm your man. I'll do whatever you tell me to.
If Trump is looking for a cash cow, I mean, that would be a good pick, right?
That's
a guy
true.
who has like a ton of wealth who can help fund his campaign, because Trump needs the dollars.
I mean, to me, this is an indication that we already knew Trump was the party. We already knew Trump dominates the Republican Party in a way right now that probably no single figure has. To me, this is...
He is the party. I mean, yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, there is no party essentially without him.
This is the indication that Nikki Haley is saying he's going to win. He's going to win. And why not be on the winning team? I think Haley looks at her surroundings, looks at the polling, looks at Joe Biden the last couple of weeks and says, why sit this out? Trump's going to win. Why not try to pour some power into myself? If Nikki Haley is really good at looking at the lay of the land, seeing which way the wind blows, and filling her political sails with whatever gets her to the destination. Right now, she's made the calculation. Trump's going to win. It's better to be VP than not to be VP. And she'll whip up some story, and she'll find a way to navigate Trump's personality, because he's going to humiliate her, and she'll accept that. But she'll find a message, like you said. I'm the normie. I'm reaching out to the normies. I'm putting the party back together. She'll come up with some shtick that she can use to justify this whole thing.
It's so
just another one of 1,000 Republicans that folded like a cheap suit.
and there really is no limit to it. I mean, it just, we see it time and time again that it doesn't go away. Well, actually, the one item I was going to talk about, which again should not be surprising anymore, was a 30-second video that was put out on Trump's Truth Social account that referenced the Unified Reich.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Had newspaper hypothetical news headlines, also styled early 1900s fonts, took World War I reports, referred to German industrial strength and peace through strength. Again, it's an example. And I thought that the response to it by the Trump campaign saying, oh, this was a lower level staffer, when it's well known that there are no lower level staffers who control his account. These are high level senior members of his team that know exactly what they're doing. And the references and that are made to authoritarianism and to Nazism, Trump has done that before, just in his own speeches, with the way he refers to his opponents as vermin, and some of the other language he's used. And this is just another extension of that. And we're just seeing but on one hand, it's crazy that it's so public and out there. Like, if you go back a decade, like a major party candidate using creative assets that had Unified Reich, in them. I mean, But
isn't what Trump suffers from is what all kind of pundits suffer from. Nobody uses an editor anymore. When Sean Hannity puts a monologue together, he doesn't have to run it past an editor like a traditional journalist would have to make sure he's factual, he's accurate, he's on point. So Trump, this got presented to Trump, I guess. He saw the picture. Of course, he didn't read it. He didn't put it by anybody. He just said, oh, this looks good. And he sent it out. And people calling Trump a Nazi just works in his favor. I mean, this isn't going to hurt him in any way. This is just another, 1,000. Trump's a shit monster. This is just one more turd thrown on him. It's not going to make him any weaker. He's not going to lose a single vote over this.
No, I mean, I think there's very little he could actually lose votes over.
No.
So this is not going to be it.
What do you think of the debate? I think June 27th, Biden kind of directly worked with Trump to set up a 2-debate schedule. He cut out all of the presidential commission on debates, which I don't even know why they exist anymore. And allegedly, they're going to do 2 debates, with the first one June 27th. That's way earlier than any other debate that's ever happened.
Very early, although this is also the earliest that both presidential candidates have essentially locked up their nominations.
Sure. And people are voting earlier than they have before.
They have, yes. So people are voting, I think now the earliest is end of September, that people can vote by mail in many states. So I think it's a masterful stroke by the Biden campaign, because they need to reset the narrative. The polls have been stubborn, particularly the swing state polling.
As in Biden's losing all of them.
Right. He is down in all of the swing states, and he needs to do whatever he can to recover that lost ground. And so this is an opportunity to do so, but also put the race in in perspective and in very stark terms for those who haven't come to the conclusion or grappled with the fact that this is a Biden versus Trump race. Seeing both of them on stage in June brings that home. And I think he's wanting to show a contrast. And I guess the one thing he has going for him, which again works to his favor, that Trump doesn't intend to do, but he does, is that the constant browbeating of Biden as low energy Biden, dementia Biden, it does work to his favor when all Biden has to do is just exceed that very low bar that's been set. So if he can replicate what he did during the State of the Union, that's helpful. There's a lot of restraints on this debate as well. There won't be a live audience, which plays to Trump quite a bit. Trump usually plays off the audience. It helps him a lot. He's not going to be able to do that. They will be able to cut the mics for candidates that talk over, which Trump tends to do. So it's a chance for Biden to reset the narrative early on. By committing to these debates, it also gives him an opportunity to limit the debates as well and choose not to commit to later debates by holding these ones up front. Conversely, if he doesn't do as well, it gives him some time to recover.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
it's...
I have no expectation for Biden in these debates. And the reason I say that is yesterday Biden went to Detroit and he gave a 20-minute speech. It was brutal. It was like watching your grandfather try to give a public appearance. I mean, Brandon, he said things like one of the hostages who is a hostage in Gaza right now, he said he was sitting in the room with them. He was not. He claimed at 15 to join the NAACP and participated in a protest that kept a black family in their house. That simply did not happen. It's gotten so bad that the Presidential Archive is in a fight with the White House to say, hey, guys, stop sending us the text of the speech he was supposed to deliver. Our job is to archive the words of the president, the actual words. What did he say? That's what this record is about. And Biden is so all over the place in his speeches now. The archive is saying, hey, we have to start recording some of this down. Let me ask the question this way. Biden has been actively campaigning for 2 weeks. Have you seen any of it? Have you heard any of it? Have you heard any of his has it impacted you at all, his campaigning?
No.
No.
Yeah.
No. Can't tell you where he's going. Can't tell you what the message is. Can't tell you where he's been.
I mean, I do think to the degree that's the same with the Trump campaign. I think I go back and forth on whether debates are even necessary, and I think they have less and less relevance. But the one thing they can do is it is an opportunity to get a lot of eyes focused on both candidates at the same time, because I think a big frustration for Biden's team is that people haven't been paying attention to all the crazy shit that Trump has been saying during his rallies.
Just baked in the cake.
Or the fact that, his teleprompter stops working and he freezes up for a minute. Like he can't spek because there's nothing on his teleprompter. Or he starts talking about the late, great Hannibal Lecter, who doesn't exist.
I forgot about that.
And there's... there's so much of that, too. I mean, we're dealing with two candidates who bring a lot of baggage to the table and continue to seemingly deteriorate, as the days go by in their public appearances. So neither of them, I think, have received, unless you're kind of an insider, you haven't been following those nuances from like rally to rally. But having them side by side, it gives a chance for voters to stack them up and say, okay, they're both senile. They're both... they both have issues. Is one more crazy than the other, which I would posit as Trump? Like, does that make a difference? We'll see.
In some ways, these two men are caricatures of themselves. Trump isn't a real person. And my evidence for that is none of his actions make any difference. He can say the nuttiest, craziest shit. Nobody cares because Trump isn't a real person. He's a caricature of whomever you want him to be. If you like him because he hates this person, that's what he is. What he says, what he does, and his actions are completely and totally irrelevant to him running for presidency. And he knows it.
But it means there's no accountability either. I mean, you can literally say and do anything.
When was there ever?
It's such a bizarre place to be.
It is. Bill Maher went on I think he went on Gutfeld on Fox. He called Biden cadaver-like in his looks. And I hate to say it, he is spot on. The whole point I'm driving at is the point I've been driving at in this current iteration relaunch of the podcast. Biden is going to lose. He is going to lose because he is simply too old and he does not have the mental capacity to present himself as the president of the United States. And if you are the president of the United States, your number one job is to look and sound the part. It is not that he doesn't, it is that he can't. There is no upside for Joe Biden. This debate is, what, The worst that he could do is do a complete fail and they kick him off the ticket, right? What's the best he can do? He mutters through it and people say, he did.
But
he
see,
did
I'm
okay.
not ready to say that, because if you go back to 2020, I mean, Trump lost 2 of the debates because of the way he came across.
He was just such an ass.
Where he came, but also unhinged. Like,
Sure.
it was, and at one point it looked like he was trying to cough on Biden. That's when we knew it.
Because he had COVID.
But
that first debate was just
and you remember
crazy.
How people were just so turned off.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. So again, like, I don't know if you get into a situation where Biden isn't very coherent and he's stumbling against an unhinged Trump, who comes off looking better though in that case, or is it a draw? I don't know.
I mean, it comes down to expectations. Trump is going to be a raving lunatic. And that his half of the country that loves that. That's what they're here for, is the lunacy. The more he acts like a dick, the more they're in. That is not afforded to Biden.
But this is my problem. There's 2 separate standards. Like
100% there are. 1,000% there are. What could Biden do to gain more support? I got to tell you, I can't think of a single thing. I can't. Let me rephrase it. I said, what could he personally do? What action could he take to show him being more presidential? It's nothing speaking. He can't speak. That's not it. What can he do? He can ride a bike. He can ride in a car. What are we talking about here? My point is, Biden has no cards to play to raise his excitement level or to close that gap in energy of MAGA to the Democrats. It's simply not going to happen. And no surrogate can do that for you. Do you get any text fundraising from Biden?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Do you ever get them from Biden himself? I mean, labeled as "This is President Biden"?
I think I've had a few, yeah.
Mine all come from Barack Obama.
Oh, really? See, I don't think I've had any from Obama in a long time.
I mean, I got one today about Obama's going to give me a 600% match on anything that I send, and President Barack Obama really wants me to vote. He doesn't mention Joe Biden, I think, one time. He mentions Trump a ton. But this is my point. Even in your fundraising, even in your outreach to your base, the people that are hardcore in your camp, Biden can't. What's Biden going to do? He's not going to Brandon, I'm as angry with the Democrats as I've ever been. And when we fuck this up, and we will, and Trump 2.0 comes in, I think I'm just out. I think I'm just out of the Democrat. I think, did you officially re-register as an independent?
I did. I re-registered. I'm no longer a Republican.
I think I'll go through the process of becoming an independent, because this is on us. The Republican Party has deteriorated to a point that they're non-functional. This has happened over 8 years, and it's happened right in public in front of our fucking eyes. And you know what we're going to do to stop it? Nothing. Stop telling me how important this election is to democracy if that is the candidate we are running. The 2 messages do not connect. If it were that important, he wouldn't be running. And that's coming from somebody who has never pulled the lever for a Republican. Not once. I can't even remember considering a Republican. In November, if nothing changes, I'm just leaving the top blank. I can't do it. I can't vote for Biden. I can't do it.
You have to think about it in terms of having stability over chaos, though, and who Biden brings into his administration, from a capability standpoint versus the Trump administration and who that'll be stacked with. It's not going to be like Trump 1.0. Trump 2.0 is going to be vastly different.
I am falling under the philosophy of you get the government you vote for, and you get it good and hard. And maybe we just need to get Trump good and hard one more time.
I wonder, because I go back and forth on this too, even if the Democrats had a different candidate, like how much of Trump's support though is baked in, where
it's all baked in.
So like at some point though, does the candidate even matter if you had someone younger than Biden? Because we've seen this play out when it's not a head-to-head matchup against Trump, when you're talking about the Senate races and the House races, those Democrats are doing very well. I mean, the House, And if we're going to look, and I never thought if you would have asked Brandon of like 6, 7, 8 years ago that he would be rooting for a Democratic House and Senate, I would have like, I would have sold you my lakefront property, my oceanfront property in Iowa. But Democrats will very likely gain back the House. It's looking more and more likely that they could hold the Senate, even in an unfavorable environment, because their candidates are doing extremely well in Ohio and Nevada and Pennsylvania. So it's this head-to-head matchup against Trump that is the issue. And that as long as Trump is on a ballot, there's that half of the country that will support him no matter what, even as some of them vote for Democrats for other races. And that is the dynamic that even post-January 6th, everything that has consumed us since Trump left the White House that I've not been able to understand. And one thing that drives me crazy is people slice and dice, like, has this court case hurt Trump or helped him? Has this, on the margins, I don't know that any of that has mattered. I don't think it's made any difference.
It doesn't matter. It's all baked in. He's a shit monster. The more shit you throw, the stronger he gets. I still have people who text me all the time. Is this what takes Trump out? No! There's nothing that takes him out.
And Craig, we are still so many months away from November, and I am so mentally exhausted with this already. I do not know how I'm going to be able to continue to November.
I was thinking today, I'd give anything if the election were tomorrow. Let's just get this over with.
Can we go like the UK route? So they just called a snap election in the UK for July 4th or 5th, around that time, because that's what they can do. They can just hold a snap election. They have like a 6-week campaign period and it's over. We don't do that. We have 2 to 4 years of campaigning, and I'm ready.
I want to be abundantly clear. This is all the Democrats' fault. We have to take 100% of the blame for this because we elected a dude that was too old when we elected him, and now we're allowing him to run for re-election. After he said correctly, I am a transition. I am not a two-termer. I am here to get the ship righted and pass it off to somebody younger. Then you immediately screwed the pooch and got Kamala Harris, who has no political talent and has extreme. She has displayed no political growth in her 4 years in office.
No.
So we elected the guy to beat Trump. Cool. We had to do that. We got that done. We knew the guy was not a second termer. We knew this was a transition, and we did nothing about it. And that's on us.
Well, and how much of this is on Biden and his team? Because they could have easily made this decision in the first 2 years of the administration.
That goddamn trip to Ireland that did it.
And worked something out to where they replaced Kamala Harris and put her in a different role. Like, there could have been a lot of this done early on, and none of it was. Because I fully assumed that Biden would just be a one-term president, and that was kind of baked in, that he wasn't going to run again.
He said he wasn't, actually.
Because
he set him a bridge.
I do not blame Democrats for choosing him in 2020. Because
I don't either.
I subscribe that he was probably one of the only people in that year that could beat Trump, and obviously he did, and he got the job done. But again, I think if you would go to many of the voters who ended up casting ballots for him, they did so under the assumption that he would just serve one term, to what you said.
I think so.
And so I think that's also where he's going to struggle with some of those same voters that he may be losing, is because people voted for him under that assumption and scenario, and he is not stepped down, and he has not made room for up-and-comer. And so I think many of those voters are like, well, this wasn't what we voted for.
That's another great point. How has Biden made room for the next generation of Democrats? He hasn't. He's done nothing in that area.
And there is, if you look at the Democrats that have been elected governor in the past 2 cycles and have made it to the House and Senate, there are a lot of younger voices as well as a lot of pragmatic voices that I think would be next in line, or should be, in terms of running for the presidency. And I think that if Biden had not run this year, it would have been really interesting to see some of those people step up.
Well, our candidate should be Gretchen Whitmer, 100%.
You have Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, too, who's been a very effective governor.
I can't listen to the message anymore about how we're the adults in the room right now, and it's our job to save the goddamn country. Because if that's true, we are doing an absolute piss poor job of it.
Well, and this is inherently the problem, too, when you only have two parties. And again, America long term, if we could transition out of the two parties, because when you have one party that is bent on destruction and authoritarianism, you have to then rely on the other party being fully competent. You have no backup.
Correct. And one party is completely disintegrated and the other one's totally lost.
Yeah. And there's nowhere else to go.
No.
That's it.
There's not. And there's no way to throw these people out. You mentioned in Europe, you can call a snap election.
Yeah.
There's ways that you can say, this isn't what we thought we were
Vote
getting.
no confidence
we
in
want to
Parliament.
go in another direction.
We don't have those mechanisms.
We just don't have that. So am I completely insane to think that there's an avenue to get Biden off the ticket?
I mean, no, because there still is, and I know people don't like to talk about it because they see that as kind of a Hail Mary scenario, but it can be done. You can go right up to the convention floor and have a fight or have an alternative proposed. That's been done before, so that isn't unheard of in history, even if it is rare. But until we actually get to the Democratic convention, there is an opportunity to do that.
Well, that I can't remember his name, that a-hole from Congress who primaried Biden, which was stupid and dumb. But his message was, hey, he was supposed to be a transition. Everybody knew that. And let's just say it. It's not ageist to say Biden's too old to be the president of the United States.
No, it's not. Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips.
Phillips, right? That's right. That guy was a total twat. But he did have – his point was basically true, and that's where we're stuck. I think these debates are going to be a disaster for Biden. He does okay on the State of the Union because, again, teleprompter, sitting there, all of that. But there's just no way he can get through 90 minutes of talk. He's just not showing the ability to do that.
No, I don't think so. I hadn't decided if I wanted to watch that live yet or not. I suppose I will. I'll probably be drinking heavily. I don't know. I
remember the first debate last time. We had some friends over, and we were like, let's take this seriously. We made it 15 minutes and said, yeah, you can turn that off. This is just Trump just going to act like a douchebag as much as he can. And I didn't know he had COVID then, too.
Yeah, that's right. That's when he had COVID. Did it tell anybody? Endangered everybody in the room. And people forget, Chris Christie was his debate prep guy.
And he almost killed him.
Yeah, he almost killed. He put Chris Christie in the hospital. Chris Christie was hospitalized, and his, he was in very dire straits for a while. So
he almost died, if I remember. Shit, if we didn't have remdesivir, I think, when Trump got COVID, he probably would have died too.
Yeah, that was the thing. Ironically, at the time, Trump and his campaign team was very hush-hush about it, but he was very close to death. And he got remdesivir. He got the what was
he got the full cocktail of
the antiviral.
Yeah, the antivirals. He got it all.
He got injected with everything they had at the time, which wasn't available to everyday Americans.
Which is okay. The president should get, if it's safe, go ahead. To show how much Trump has power over the Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is an idiot. Nobody can make a defense for her. Did you see the tweet she put out when she took standard verbiage in the FBI's warrant to search Mar-a-Lago, which basically says, hey, you're authorized to use deadly force, which again...
part of any and every warrant that's executed by the FBI.
And I'm sure you know this too, Brandon, but if I'm an FBI agent and you pull a gun on me, I don't need a warrant to use force. It's implied that it's part of my job that if certain situations happen, that's why I'm a cop. I get to use force.
We see that daily. That's not news. So she extracts that and claims that the FBI was trying to assassinate.
That was a kill order.
A kill order to assassinate Trump. So beyond the fact that again, we don't have forced mental evaluations in this country, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is someone who is ripe to undergo mental evaluation. Instead, she's in Congress making big decisions on our behalf. But that's insanely irresponsible because crazy, insane, but also it instigates a whole cadre of MAGA zealots who are likely to believe that, and who knows, may act on that in some extreme fashion. It was only a couple years ago, Craig, that we had a MAGA supporter who tried to get over the fence at the FBI satellite office in Cincinnati and who was armed and who ended up being shot and killed. You can have more instances like that where you have FBI satellite offices that are attacked, threats against very publicly visible FBI officials. It's just so insanely irresponsible to say something like that.
Just dumb.
Because it's not accurate in the slightest. And if you want to inflame tensions and cause election campaign riots, I mean, that would be the way you do it.
I mean, Brett Baer on Fox. Isn't Brett Baer supposed to be their news guy?
Yeah.
He's the one who lends them credibility,
some gravitas
by his down the middle reporting. Did a whole segment on this. Just brutal. And instead of the segment being Marjorie Taylor Greene is an idiot, and all she's trying to do, very irresponsibly, by the way, is to gen this up and throw some flowers at Trump so he can see her supporting him. That's all this is. That was the segment. The segment should have been on how dangerous Reddick this is.
Yes.
Instead, the segment was on how's Trump going to react to this? Is this going to strain an already strained relationship with the DOJ and the FBI? What happens when he wins? What's he going to do now?
Are you kidding me? That was the reaction?
The segment. Brandon, do you feel that Republicans are creating a permission structure with shit like this to justify some extremely bad behavior that's coming down the pike?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just the latest in kind of a long line of justification and rationale that has been thrown out there for anything and everything that may happen. We have had how many surrogates say already that they will not commit to accepting the results of
that's just standard
election,
speak.
Which again, up until 2020 was unheard of. That was atypical in American elections. And then you have the claim and the proposition that's put out there. Trump, in his most recent Time interview that he did, basically said that he, couldn't guarantee that there wouldn't be violence in the streets if he was denied re-election.
Well, according to Trump, Brandon, there's a riot happening every day outside the courthouse.
Yeah.
Not now.
This is part of the alternate reality that he's painted about how, the fact that his supporters aren't allowed near the courthouse. I mean, all of this BS that's supposed to justification for why he doesn't have his supporters there out in full force. He has to find some way to qualify it.
So Trump's trial is going to come to an end next week. I think closing arguments are Tuesday or something like that. The defense called one witness to the stand,
Costello,
which most defense attorneys are like, that was an amateur move. You don't, on a case like this, you stand up and vehemently announce that we have no witnesses, we rest, because the prosecution has come nowhere close to making their case. They tried to put this guy on who I guess tried to big dick the judge, and the judge was not feeling it at all.
He became belligerent with the judge and then with the prosecution and with some of his statements.
So this dude rolled his eyes and said "jeez" to the judge when he wouldn't let him answer a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Judge cleared the courtroom, chastised him. Brandon, I had to go to court last Wednesday for a speeding ticket where somebody popped off at the judge and the judge ripped them a new one. This is standard behavior.
Completely.
You don't try to show up a judge in front of a jury.
You know what is ironic? This witness was a former prosecutor.
But so who is he performing for? Trump.
Yeah.
That's just a performance for Trump.
Okay, so here's the irony, and I think the defense doesn't do themselves any favors. They called this witness forward to poke holes in the credibility of Michael Cohen, who has a lot of credibility issues. But as upon I'm blanking out. What is it called when the prosecution does their
cross-examination,
redirect?
Thank you.
their redirect with cross-examination, they were able to prove that this guy has credibility issues as well. He's a Trump world insider. They found several statements that conflicted with what he said on the stand in terms of who was directing him, Giuliani, Trump, what he was there to do. He was there to get Cohen on the same page as them and to not basically betray Trump. And so this was a very risky maneuver for the defense to use him, of all people. And so I think they actually not only did do themselves any favors, I think they negated the holes in credibility they picked out with Cohen by bringing this guy forward, because this guy is not the best person to refute Cohen at all. So I think at the end of the day, I don't know. I personally think that Trump will be charged. I don't know what that entails in terms of punishment. But
that he's going to get convicted?
I'm sorry, convicted, not charged, yeah.
Well, I have no idea how this trial is going to go, because depending on what media outlet you subscribe to,
right,
it's either, if you're a CNN person, Trump is completely guilty. This is a layup. The prosecution has proven every element of this case, including what the crimes were and what the charges will be, and this is a layup. If you watch Fox, this is the biggest miscarriage of justice of all time. This judge is a lunatic that's out of control, and anything other than an acquittal is the biggest miscarriage of justice ever by the United States. And there is no middle ground. So we're right back to where we always are with this guy. Some people will say, thank God he finally got held accountable for something. I don't really know what this money and state federal charge is about, but the dude is always messed up with this shit, and he finally got clipped on something.
And he's very good at evading accountability. I mean, he knows how to play out the cases against him, delay, and so I think they're expecting closing arguments to occur after Memorial Day, and then the trial will wrap up. I don't know where we're in the timeline of topics, but I wanted to ensure we covered Alito. And the news that came out about him with the inverted American flag flying.
Isn't the inverted flag, it's an international symbol for distress, right?
Distress.
Okay.
Basically that the country is in duress, doesn't have a functioning government. Yeah. So this was the flag that many people flew in the aftermath. So which we need to come up with a name for that era, but the period of time between the November election in 2020 and January 6th. That was a very chaotic time in terms of everything that was occurring to try to overturn the election. But during that time, a lot of people were flying inverted flags who were part of the Stop the Steal movement. And so Alito, for several days, his home was flying that flag. His excuse that he gave, he blamed it on his wife, said she did it up because she had a dispute with neighbors who had politically vulgar yard signs, and so because they would have taken them down in retaliation, she did that. First of all, that is, to me, is BS. That doesn't pass a smell test. So to retaliate against your neighbors, you decide to fly the American flag upside down, like with not even knowing the symbolism it has at that point in time with
your
what's
husband's
happening in
a
the
Supreme
country.
Court judge.
It's like, give me a break.
Say, should I be doing this?
And someone else please explain to me, if you're a constitutionalist, because this drove me crazy at the time because I saw people on their Facebook profiles inverting the American flag and flying them upside down. So how is it disrespectful to kneel before the flag as a form of protest, but it's not disrespectful to fly the flag upside down? That's okay. Or to deface the flag and put Trump's image over it or his logo, which I've also seen before. So I don't understand this double standard world we live in. I guarantee you if a liberal justice for 2 minutes had flown an inverted flag, Republican senators and members of Congress would be up in arms. And the problem at the end of the day, the news broke today too, and there's photographs of it, that Alito's summer home flew what's called the Christian Appeal flag. The Christian Appeal flag is a very specific flag. It's little known, but it essentially symbolizes your commitment to a nation governed in
Was
Christian.
this recently?
I forget the time period. It just broke today. Like literally, like on my way here, I saw the story and started reading it. But it was his summer home in New Jersey. But it's a little bit more of an obscure flag. But people carried it during the Stop the Steal protests and on January 6th. And so it's another example, though, of flying a flag that has very deep political symbolism is also antithetical to the Constitution, because the meaning behind that flag is that Christianity should run the country, that we should be a Christian nation in law, governance, everything. And so we have no mechanism, though, that would mandate that Alito recuse himself from election interference cases involving Trump, presidential immunity cases, January 6th cases, or with the news today, he should recuse himself from any cases involving separation of church and state, because flying that flag is a conflict of interest and says that he subscribes to the notion that there should be no separation of church and state. But there is nothing to compel him to do so, because, again, most of what we have in this country is governed by norms, and we haven't had our norms tested this way by a Supreme Court justice, just like on the financial side with being able to take money and trips from anybody and everybody, lobbyists. So we're, again, stuck in this moment where we don't have the capacity to police the court. They can only police themselves. Nobody polices them. Congress could, but they have not.
So what I hear you saying is we've arrived at a point politically in this country where a Supreme Court justice feels comfortable flying the American flag upside down in front of his house and a Christian nationalist flag at his vacation home.
Yeah.
Just
and there's no way he didn't know. Did he not go home those days?
No
like he
way.
just says, see
There's
it.
No
Like, give me a break.
I guess this is what I'm saying. This ties back to Nikki Haley. People are starting to come to grips with the orange turd is not going away. In fact, if things hold, he's going to be president again. And I think what we're seeing, people are starting to act accordingly. And it's only going to get worse.
Well, and we're seeing people's true colors come out, right? I mean, I think back, Alito, was he confirmed in 2005?
It's been a while.
2004, 2005, during George W. Bush's presidency. I mean, can you imagine, like, if any of this had been known then, like, the questioning he would have received? Like, I mean, it would have been...
Are you sure? Are you sure? I think he would have went right on through. In today's environment,
Well, in today's environment, yes, but I'm saying before times, I mean, Alito was known as a conservative, but, I mean, none of this was in the cards. I mean, in terms of...
I agree with you. If he'd have pulled this in 2004, he never would have even made it far enough to get considered to be a Supreme Court
Not in the
justice.
Senate with the 60 vote threshold you have to meet.
If this was
I'm
a
sorry, not
judge
60 votes.
today,
That wasn't the case then.
he wouldn't get confirmed?
Well, you're right. I think he would, because, again, it's so tribal now that it would be nearly unheard of. You might get one senator to break away, but if that just doesn't happen anymore.
If the Republicans and the MAGA folks start feeling that they've got this in the bag, that Biden, let's say Biden has a terrible performance on the 27th, I think you're going to see more and more people start testing the waters. What is possible and what is not possible.
There is a danger, though, on that. Overreaching. In a similar vein, and I hate to get back to Trump gave an interview where he seemed to indicate support for states deciding to restrict birth control and ban birth control on their own, and then later attempted to walk that back. But is this not the trajectory you go down with the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, and then you have the Alabama Supreme Court decision on IVF. You have Arizona reverting to its 1854 law on abortion. Well, you would go, what is next? Well, birth control would be the next frontier, right? That was decided by the Griswold versus Connecticut decision in 1950s or 60s?
It was a long time ago.
Early 60s? Something like that. A long time ago. So so again, that's a danger, though, that there's no guardrails now. And so this happens with any movement that gets everything at once. It then has to retain some type of relevancy. And so with the anti-abortion movement, it's like, well, where do we go to next? Well, that would be next. And eventually that could hurt them. You do have, I guess a positive would be the number of states that have abortion amendments on the ballot this fall.
And you mentioned Nevada added one.
Florida has one. Missouri has one. And there's, I think, and you have to be realistic about Florida. Florida is not going to go Democrat on the presidential level. But if you get Republicans to spend money there because down ballot races become competitive at the House level and at the state level, then that will there is an unlimited pool of money. So that is an effective play by Democrats to divert resources where you normally wouldn't have Republicans diverting resources.
Trump's an idiot. I think both of us agree on that. He has some base level political skills, but from just a sheer brain power perspective, he's pretty dumb.
Right. Yeah. And he's not an issue person.
No. This is a sign of how comfortable Trump feels right now. He knows his party has gotten shellacked over the abortion issue. He cares so little that he's going to wade into contraception. Something even, I think that's even more, it's certainly more day-to-day than abortion is for women and women's health.
Yeah, polling shows like anywhere between like 89 and 94% of Americans supporting legalized contraception.
Any normal politician would just steer free from that, right?
Yeah.
Trump feels so good about himself, the party, and where he's going. This is going to be a steady stream of this shit.
Well, in a similar vein, he was speaking at the NRA convention this last weekend. And I don't know if you saw, but he professed support for rolling back the bipartisan law, the only effort to restrict guns in the last like 30, 40 years, which itself is insane because this was very marginal. I mean, if you would call it gun control.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, we're going to roll it all back.
There's no repercussion for that. No one takes that seriously. It's just, he's a caricature. He likes guns. I like guns. We're gun people.
Roll it all back.
Brandon, are you doing anything interesting this holiday weekend?
I am not going out of town this holiday weekend unless I do kind of a last-minute road trip. But just taking it easy. How about you?
We're going to Portland. My son graduated from college last weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
That's
I realized
right.
He was already, I totally slipped my mind that he's a high school or
Jackson
college senior,
Parker Huey graduated Mo State with honors with a degree in audio, digital media with a specialization in audio engineering or something, I think.
Very cool. Yeah, very specific. Yeah,
I think he wants to do audio and video work at a corporate level. So there should be jobs available for that.
Very cool. Portland is to celebrate then?
Yeah, the kids get to pick a vacation we go on, and we kind of go, and he picked Portland, so that's what we're going.
That'll be fun
this week.
Yeah.
I had my first meltdown over inflation this week, too.
Oh, no. Where?
I went to Home Depot.
Okay.
I bought 3 4x4s, which are like standard post for a fence. I bought 8 6-foot fence planks. 8 just boards you'd able to make your fence. 1 2x4 and a box of screws. Brendan, how much do you think that cost?
$50.
$102.
$102?
I told the woman, we're going to have to re-ring this because I just cannot accept that
I was
is
way off.
100. Brandon, you had the correct price of what it should be.
Okay.
My point is, this is again, I know that I have not been heavily impacted with inflation. I know other people have. It's a persistent problem that, again, Biden is going to have to deal with during this whole cycle.
Yeah, I agree. And some of this, too, is I think we have to be realistic that, some of the pricing adjustments were inflationary because of the economy.
Sure.
I think there were added pricing increases that were baked into that because there was an opportunity to raise prices.
Definitely.
So you have some of these retail stores now.
Thanks for listening to 2 Men in the Middle. Make sure to give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Check out our website at 2meninthemiddle.com. Drop us an email at 2meninthemiddle@gmail.com or tweet at us at 2 Men in the Middle. We'll see you next week.